Hey guys, I'm here today to do, you guessed it, my non-fiction November TBR. So I've been drawn in. For the last few years I have done TBRs for non-fiction November and then failed miserably at reading the books I said I would, and also just at reading non-fiction books in general. But every year I see everyone's TBRs and I just think, I really want to do it. So I've been pulled back in. So, if you don't know, Nonfiction November is hosted and run by, same thing, by Olive from A Book Olive and Gemma from Nonfic Books. So I'm going to link their announcement video down below. Now there are 4 prompts, and they're 4 sort of loose prompts that can guide your reading each year. And I don't tend to follow the prompts because I generally have lots of non-fiction books I own that I really want to get to, and I probably could find ways to make these fit the prompts, but I'm just too lazy to do it. So yeah, just got a big old stack of books to show you here. Now last year I did a massive non-fiction November video and I got loads of books out of the library and I was so excited, and I didn't read any of them, maybe one. Now there's so many things I say again and again about non-fiction books in conversation with people in real life, in videos here, in my own mind, and I get fed up with hearing myself say them. So I really want to take this non-fiction November as the opportunity to try and break all those ridiculous notions I have. So one of those ridiculous notions is that I don't enjoy non-fiction as much as fiction. So I always reach more for fiction. But actually, when I take a step back and look at the amount of fiction books I read and the amount of all the ones I've read that I end up giving 5 stars to, compared to the amount of non-fiction books I read and the amount of non-fiction books I give 5 stars to, I am way better at choosing the non-fiction books I will love. I'm way more likely to give a non-fiction book 5 stars if I read it. I read way less non-fiction, but my hit rate is significantly higher. So that's one thing, which means I definitely enjoy non-fiction. The second thing is that I do lots of my reading in the evening after sort of 8 o'clock, between 8 o'clock and midnight. And I always think to myself, oh, I can't read a non-fiction book now, because a lot of the non-fiction books I would be drawn to would tend to be either depressing or more serious topics, so books with statistics and facts that I want to take on board. And so I always say, oh, you don't want to read that right before bed, you know, you're probably a bit dozy now, like you're not going to take it in properly, and I'll make that excuse. And again, I don't think that's true, because I have read some books right before bed that are non-fiction and still taken in just as much and loved it just as much. So I think those are 2 of my biggest barriers, and I really want to take this month as an opportunity to get past those barriers. So something else I wanted to mention is that I have not been reading a lot lately, as I've said in previous videos, and I have been thinking about all the books I've got on my shelves that I could be picking up at the moment. I'm just not feeling super excited about them, other than all the non-fiction books I've got, and also rereading. I'm really, like, there's a lot of books I'm drawn to rereading. So I think what I might try and make non-fiction, what I might try and make November is really non-fiction heavy, with maybe a few fiction books thrown in, but maybe more focused on rereading favourites. So yeah, those are my plans. I think I've got about 12 books to show you here. Now I have got 29 unlistened to books on my Scribd account. Scribd is an audiobook account, and I split my fiction and non-fiction, and like I said, I've got like 29 books on my non-fiction. I'm so excited for all of them. I'm not going to tell you which ones now I'm more likely to read, because I just have no idea, but I will probably listen to some audiobooks as well on top of the ones I'm going to show you. What I'm showing you now is about 1/3 of the amount of unread non-fiction books I own. Just so you have an idea, I own around 35 unread non-fiction books. It's nowhere near as bad as the amount of unread fiction books I own. This is the longest intro, nearly 4 minutes, longest intro ever. The other thing I want to mention, 4 minutes in, is sorry if the lighting's rubbish. I have a studio light on me because we have got to, you know, daylight savings. So is that what it's called? I don't know. It's darker in the evenings. And then I've got a lamp on me to try and get rid of all the white, because I look like a ghost. I probably still look a little bit like a ghost, but this is what we deal with this time of year, and I love this time of year, so I can take the hit. So there we go. So let's talk about the books. So firstly, I've got a stack of memoirs. Now I mentioned throughout the video, lots of these non-fiction books, very oddly, I've actually started reading before, and because of all the reasons I mentioned previously, I tend to start reading non-fiction books, bloody love them, and then never finish them. So I've quite a few here that I've probably mentioned before and have started reading. The first one being Wasted, Coming Back from an Addiction to Starvation by Marya Hornbacher. I'm actually about 80 pages into this one. So if you haven't heard of this book, this is the author's memoir about having an eating disorder when she was a young teenage girl. I believe she's done other memoirs since, which are about her struggle as an adult and also recovering from her eating disorder. I absolutely loved this. It's incredibly beautifully written, really lyrical, obviously a difficult read, but I was absolutely blown away by the prose. And the only reason I put this one down, it's such a silly reason, is it's got really small font, and so I was struggling to read this one in the darker evenings. But I'm definitely gonna push myself to pick this one back up because I feel like it could be a 5-star read. I was really, you know, the topic was obviously difficult to read, but it was beautifully written and really intimate. Like she got really close to the way she felt, and it just really unflinching. So yeah, I really was enjoying that one. Another one I only read one chapter of is Beyond the Pale, Folklore, Family and the Mystery of Our Hidden Genes by Emily Urquhart. So Jen has been raving about this one. In fact, Jen bought me the previous one as well and really recommended that. But I heard Jen do a podcast with this author quite a few years ago now, and I absolutely loved it. I remember listening to the podcast on the bus on the way to work and just thinking, bloody hell, that book sounds fascinating. And then reading the first chapter and then for no reason at all, putting it down. So if you haven't heard, this is about Emily Urquhart. She had a daughter who has albinism, and she decided she wanted to learn a lot more about it. And she also studies, I believe, like folklore and mythology at university, and she realised there was lots of mythology around albinism in different countries in the world. And so the book is a blend of a memoir about her daughter's life and her daughter's illness, as well as the history and mythology behind her daughter's illness. So yeah. And again, love the podcast, love the way the first chapter was written, need to read it. So the next one I picked up about a year ago at an independent bookshop because it looked so beautiful on the table and really stood out because of how bright it is. And that's Always Another Country by Sisonke, Msimang. And as soon as I read the blurb, I was like, I need to have this book. So I love fiction books about young girls coming of age, as you may know if you've been watching my channel for any length of time. And this is that, but in non-fiction form. So I need to just get into that as a memoir because I'm sure there's loads, and I love it in fiction, so surely I'd love it in non-fiction. So feel free to recommend me any memoirs you can think of about a young woman coming of age and about like girlhood and things like that. Please give me recommendations down below. So this one is focused on the fact that Sisonke was born in exile to a South African guerrilla father and a working mother. She moves from Zambia to Kenya to Canada and beyond. And it says after the political awakening in Africa, and they go back to the new South Africa, and she feels really disillusioned with it all. So this is following her life story throughout all these countries and her connection with those countries, which I think sounds fascinating. And again, really enjoyed the first section that I read. And the last memoir I have, which I haven't actually started because I haven't had it for that long, is Mrs. Gaskell and Me, Two Women, Two Love Stories, 2 Centuries Apart by Nell Stephens. And I also was recommended this one by Jen. There's a theme here. So this is about Nell Stephens, who in 2013 she's writing a book about Elizabeth Gaskell and the man that Elizabeth Gaskell had some sort of relationship with. But during the time that Nell Stephens is writing this book, she is also having a relationship with a man in modern day. And so it's about these 2 women and these 2 love stories. And I had a little flip through, and I just think it's going to be a really nice book to read. Like, I think it's going to be a real page turner, and it seems to be like really informally written, as in like I feel like I could really relate to to Nell Stephens. So yeah, really looking forward to this one. And I've read a couple of Elizabeth Gaskell books and really enjoyed them, so that should be interesting. Then what else do I have? I have a few more sort of like history books here. So the first one that I'm a bit intimidated by, so if you've read it, please spur me on, and that is The Witch, A History of Fear from Ancient Times to the Present by Ronald, Hutton. So obviously I bought this because I'm interested in it, but I am a little bit intimidated because, okay, it's only 350 pages, but it's dense. There's a lot of text to a page, and I flipped through it and it looks quite academic and maybe a little bit dry. So gonna give it a go. I'm really interested in the topic. I'm worried about the writing style, but obviously I picked it up because I was interested. So let me know if you read it and what your thoughts are, and I'm definitely gonna try it. I feel like if I don't, it's one of those books, because it's a bit intimidating, I need to just make myself pick it up one day, and I could love it, and it's the right time of year to read it. So there's that. Then we have The Stopping Places, A Journey Through Gypsy Britain by Damien. I'm laughing because Jen bought me this one too. She's obviously very good at non-fiction recommendations. So this is what it says. Damien has gypsy heritage, and he travels around Britain and looks into the history of gypsies and certain locations, and talks about their connection to certain places. So I'm really intrigued by this one, and I don't know why, but it feels like a really autumnal sort of book to read, maybe because of the cover, I'm not sure. But yeah, and I think he looks like a pretty cool guy as well, so I'm intrigued. There's that one. And this last one I feel like could be a book I absolutely love. I've had nothing but rave reviews for this one. And it is The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide, White Rage by Carol Anderson. So this follows from 1865 through the passage of the 13th Amendment, through the Civil War Black Codes, all the way to expressions of white rage after the election of America's first black president. It says she renders visible the long lineage of white rage and the different names under which it hides. So I'm really, really interested to get to this one. And when I flick through this, it looks like the exact sort of book I want it to be, in that, this is going to sound really odd, I flick through the witch one and I see lots of dates and locations and feel a bit overwhelmed. Books that are to do with social history, if I flick through them and there's lots of dates and statistics, I'm really happy, because I feel like social history books, sometimes I feel like they don't go far enough with giving me facts and evidence and case studies, and that's what I want for social history, and I think this is going to do that brilliantly based on just sort of flicking through, so I'm hoping to love that one. Then I have a few that are sort of like histories blended with memoir. Something I really enjoy is when someone tackles a theme but relates it back to themselves, because it becomes this intimate portrayal of something they're really passionate about. So, and also usually they sort of learn something about themselves along the way, which I always find interesting. So first one's first, I've mentioned this a million times, so I'm not going to dwell on it. I do have an excuse for why I haven't read this one, but it's pathetic. And it is Brit-ish on Race, Identity and Belonging by Afua Hirsch. I've tried to read this 3 times. Every time I try reading it, I absolutely bloody love it. My reasons for not having got further than 60 pages is that the chapters are really long. There's quite a lot of text to a page, and I look at each chapter and I'll be like, it's going to take me an hour and a half to read. And then the idea of reading a non-fiction book for that long overwhelms me. It's absolutely pathetic, because when I read it, it's not hard to read, and I have no excuse, and I think I could love it. So if I don't read it this month, I'm going to actually like hate myself. So there's that. And the next one is Trace, Memory, History, Race and the American Landscape by Lauret, Savoy. I feel like this could be the perfect blend for me. So it says, in this provocative and powerful mosaic of personal journeys and historical inquiry across continent and time, Savoy explores how the country's still unfolding history and ideas of race have marked her and the land, from twisting terrain within the San Andreas fault zone to a South Carolina plantation, from national parks to burial grounds, from Indian territory and the US-Mexico border to the US Capitol. Trace grapples with a searing national history to reveal the often unvoiced presence of the past. So I love the fact that this is a memoir. I love the fact that it's a historical book that is tackling race, but what I am really interested in is the connection of all those things with the natural world and geography, because I also love books that are about landscape. So yeah, I think I'm gonna love it. And the last one is a more recent release, and it is Queer Intentions, a personal journey through LGBTQ plus culture by Amelia Abraham. And I flicked through this one and it sounds like it's going to be really good and maybe slightly humorous, because the chapter headings are things like Cooking Dinner Forever, The Business of Drag, In the Beginning There Were Gay Bars, What Have We Got to Be Proud Of? So I think it might be slightly humorous and maybe have like a bitter irony to it, and I feel like I've got loads to learn and loads I should know about LGBTQ plus culture and history, so I'm really hoping this could be a good like starting off point for me to know more. So there's that one. And then I have the last few which didn't really fit into any category, so we'll talk about them now. So this one, I'm about a third of the way through. It's Turning the Tide on Plastic, How Humanity and You Can Make Our Globe Clean Again by Lucy Siegle. So I heard the author give a talk about a year ago, and it was about an hour, the talk, and I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best talks I'd ever been to. I loved it. Bought the book thinking this is going to be phenomenal, and then was really disappointed. So I think what it is that I felt, of the 70 pages that I read, that it was way more simplistic than I expected. I felt like it wasn't really telling me anything that I hadn't already learned from like brief snippets on YouTube, and I felt like the talk was amazing and the book wasn't giving me any more than the talk had, but if anything the talk gave me it more passionately, and I don't think I should feel like that. The talk shouldn't be able to give me as much detail as 70 pages of a book, so I put it down. However, I was getting to the section which is like what you can do about it, which is this bit at the back, which is more about hands-on approaches to what you can do in your own home, in your own life to reduce plastic. And I feel like I could still really get a lot out of that section. So I'm going to carry on, and I'd like to get to that section, and if it's still awful then I will give up. But it's not awful, I'm being unfair there. It just wasn't as good as I was hoping for it to be, really. So yeah, but I definitely want to get to the second section. I feel like now we're in a new home and we probably need to replace things, and you know, we've got like different needs, like there's things we need to get for the kitchen that we didn't need in the other one, things like that. This is a good opportunity to try and not buy lots of plastic things and to try and shift over to other options, and so this is a good time to read this. So there's that. And then the other one, which I have started and never finished, is Sunshine State. This is an essay collection by Gerard. So I bought this book when it came out and I was so excited about it. Number one, beautiful cover. Number two, excellent title. Number three, I've been excited about this author's books for quite a while, so I've never read her other books, but I've always felt like she's an author I could really love. So I picked this up because the way it was described was as an essay collection that focused on the flora and fauna of Florida, and I thought that sounded absolutely brilliant. Now, I think everybody also thought that, because it's ended up getting quite poor ratings on Goodreads. I think it's sitting at about 3.50, which is relatively low. I think a lot of books on Goodreads tend to get nearer to the 3.8 mark and above. And all the people I heard review this book who were really disappointed were disappointed because they felt like they'd been missold this book, because they picked it up thinking it was going to be a book about the flora and fauna of Florida. And whilst the cover is beautiful, perhaps they shouldn't have chosen this cover if that isn't what this book is about. Bit of a missell. So I've read the first two essays and they're nothing to do with the flora and fauna of Florida. The first one, though, was exquisite. Some of the best prose I'd ever read, and it's called BFF, and it's about her best friend and this really toxic relationship they had, and I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. It took my breath away. I welled up just reading it. I kept pausing and rereading it, and as soon as I'd finished I read the whole thing again. And then I got on to the next essay, which I think from memory was about her father and some religion he got into, and then maybe something to do with oil. I can't remember. And I was just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this isn't to do with Florida, I'm really confused. And then I just stopped and put it down and have never got back to it. So I think that's really shit, because obviously I love the writing style and I've got no real excuse, and I just need to get past it. It's not about cool animals in Florida, and just read it because I loved that first essay. So there's that. And the last one I've never actually started, and that's Bitch Doctrine, Essays for Dissenting Adults by Lauret Penny. So I read, what was it called? Unspeakable Things by Lauret Penny, God, years ago, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good collection of essays about feminism, but I didn't think it was phenomenal. So I think this one sounds like it's going to go a little bit further. It says it establishes her as one of the most urgent and vibrant feminist voices of our time. So yeah, I read the first few pages in the bookshop when I picked it up and really liked the tone. It's very angry, so perhaps not for everybody, but I am really looking forward to picking this one up, and it's got really big font. I think it could be a really quick read. So yeah, that is my last one. Big old stack. And another one I would like to get to, but I haven't got here because it's in a box somewhere, I need to hunt it down, is I would like to reread Strangers in Iceland, Names for the Sea by Sarah Moss. Absolutely loved it when I read it years ago, and I've never reread it, and I'd really like to take this Nonfiction November as the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I won't manage to read all of these, and as I said, I'll also be trying to read some audiobooks, and I probably won't get through a whole month without reading some fiction. So we'll see. I'm not even going to try and, well, I'll be annoyed if I read less than 5 non-fiction books, because I feel like I manage like 2 in an average month, so I'd like to read more. And yeah, I just feel like if I really properly have a go at this could be a turning point in my reading life, because actually there's so much non-fiction I'm really excited about, and I just need to give it the time it needs and you know, become the 50-50 fiction non-fiction reader I think I was born to be. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know if you read any of these, and as I said, do feel free to recommend me any memoirs you can think of about young girls coming of age. And just based on the books I've got here, I think this is a pretty good sort of cross, what do you call it? I can't think, but a pretty good example of all the different types of non-fiction books I like to read. So yeah, feel free to recommend me other books based on this stack. And also I was thinking about doing a video during Nonfiction November about my favourite nonfiction books, so let me know if you'd be interested in that, because I'll try and find all the books in the various boxes and do you know, a top nonfiction video so you guys can get inspiration of other books to read. Right, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!